Welcome to the Iron Edge podcast, all about unlocking your full potential inside and out of the gym. Our guest today is none other than the star of the new hit discovery show, Harpoon Hunters, Niko Chaprales.
Glad to be here, Ken.
Yeah, hey, thanks for coming up.
And, Cerberus athlete. But
there's that as well. I think the Harpoon Hunters is sort of taking a precedence in that right now.
A front seat at the moment. Yeah, for sure.
Dude, how's it going? I mean, I know you've been super busy with all PR stuff for it.
Yeah, the week before the show, I think I did. We did a full day of Zoom interviews with different media outlets around the country, whether it was, Detroit. We did a ton of stuff in the middle of the country, some California stuff, and basically had the same interview over and over again for 7 hours. Yeah. So they gave me like a little cheat sheet of things they were going to ask. And they're just like, yeah, it's going to get really repetitive. And I started losing track of what I'd already said, Yeah. So we had a little 15-minute break. So I took a Post-it note and I was like, I had electric harpoon, made by the creators of Wicked Tuna and my dad. And then I made a little grid. And every time I talked about it, I checked it off to make sure I didn't reiterate what I said in each interview because it becomes mindless,
I mean, it completely does.
Yeah. So, and then the next day after that, I did the same thing for radio shows. And then the day after that, I did the same thing for newspapers. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I probably did about 70 interviews in 3 days.
Holy shit, dude.
Which, I mean, I never realized how mentally exhausting it is, because I'm just used to physical labor and going to work and the fishing gets monotonous after a while and you can kind of just tune out and go on autopilot. But this is you're what did I say that? Did I not say that?
It's like working in a booth. I'm fine doing the day to day. I go to a booth, I'm wrecked. 2-3 days, I'm a fucking shell.
Yeah, exactly.
It's wild.
So
how much
I'm sure the next person comes and you're giving the spiel and you're like, wait a minute, did I already say that to this person?
I know, right?
So
I think when you were on last time, I don't think you could talk about the show at that point.
No,
we were discussing a little bit, and I don't think you could. So give everyone a little bit of background. How did it come around? Obviously, you just mentioned from the creators of Wicked Tuna. Mm-hmm. How did it all sort of transpire to where now we've seen 2 episodes of the actual show and the third one coming in this Friday?
Sure. So the show is made by Pilgrim Productions, which, as you said, the same company that made 13 seasons of Wicked Tuna. And the executive producer, his name's Mike Nichols, and he always had this idea that he wanted to make a harpoon show.
Okay.
In season 2 or 3 of Wicked Tuna, they tried to integrate a couple harpoon boats into that show.
What were they doing? Were they doing long line on Wicked Tuna?
They do rod and reel.
Rod and reel, okay.
So, and because everybody was already kind of emotionally invested into the rod and reel guys, the harpoon, it didn't really take off, They didn't really go full bore into explaining the differences of the two fisheries. They just kind of put a cameraman on a harpoon boat and they're like, oh, we'll give it a shot. And they didn't really commit to it.
So what are the differences? I'm assuming, is it down to quota and all that sort of stuff with the method of catch?
Oh, there's literally, I mean, it couldn't be. So the rod and reel category is called the general category.
Yep.
Okay. Which you can, and this is where it gets a little confusing. You can harpoon in the general category.
Okay.
But the general category has a 1 fish a day bag limit. Okay. So when you get your fish, you go in.
Yeah.
And that category, depending upon surveys and government and all that, usually it has 650 to 700 tons. Okay.
Okay.
The harpoon category, you can only use harpoons.
Mm-hmm.
However, we have a 5 fish a day bag limit, and that changes here, every year. It changes, goes up, goes down, changes. But it used to be unlimited, so we could literally fill the boat. But now it's a 5 fish a day bag limit. But we only have 70 tons of quota.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's a derby style fishery. So that 70 tons is between, there's 29 or 30 permits issued this year, which anyone can go get a harpoon permit.
Oh, wow.
So if you wanted to go buy a boat, and I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, obviously, but
I'd be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
So with the rod and reel, is that quota per boat, or is that derby as well?
No, it's derby as well.
It's derby as well.
But it's highly like the general category, they have days of the week that they can fish, which this year was like there were the weekends were closed to try to keep like the doctors and the dentists. They want commercial fishermen to fill up the quota, not, not have it be a free for all. So
that makes sense.
But yeah, it's fast paced, it's high stress, and apparently it translates into pretty good television. So
it's cool though. Yeah. So Pilgrim's out. Is Pilgrim out here? So they have
Pilgrims in LA.
They're in LA. Okay.
Well, they have offices in New York, LA, and I believe the assistant executive producer Russ lives in Chicago. So
got you. Okay.
But yeah, so they came to me. They put out the casting call for Harpoon Hunters in November of 2023, and my deckhand just so happened to be scrolling through Facebook, and he saw it, and he was just like, "This is us, right?" And I was like, yeah, we'll look into it, right? And I kind of just put it in the back of my mind. 2 days later, they called me.
Oh wow! Okay.
Because I had already done the Shark Week shows about 10 years ago with my father, and apparently I was in the Hollywood Rolodex. And they asked if I would meet with a casting director, and I was like, yeah, sure. So they sent somebody down to Sandwich, and I did like a 3-hour interview, and they called me back about a month later, and they were like, we need to make what's called a sizzle reel.
Yeah.
Which is...
It's a promo.
Yeah, exactly. So, because they still needed to sell it.
Yeah.
So we went out in February in the middle of winter and pretended to throw harpoons at fish that weren't there. So, yeah, it was pretty terrible.
Wait, did you get to see this sizzle reel?
I didn't get to see the sizzle reel, actually.
I'm so curious how they made that look.
I'm very curious as well.
Yeah,
I did.
sold.
There's a show that they made that aired before ours, the 9-week slot before ours, called The Last Woodsman, about cutting down trees. And they showed us.
I think I watched that.
Yeah, I was.
I think I did.
You would about cutting down trees.
Yeah.
So when they came to do our sizzle reel, they showed us theirs to be like, this is what we're kind of going
style.
for. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, but no, I would love to. I would love to get a hold of that, because they said to me, they're like, we're trying to make this as authentic as possible. So I'm out there in February in a t-shirt and shorts. And we shot for probably 5 hours on that day. So
the question I had for you that just popped in my mind was that I know you used to do lobster.
Mm-hmm.
So were you already planning to get into the tuna side of stuff again when the casting call went out? Or was it more like this really not forced you to do it, but like it pushed you into it?
So, I mean, when my father passed away, we had to make the decision about what to do with his boats, because, I mean, boats are not cheap at all.
No.
So basically, I already had a lobster boat, so we decided to sell his lobster boat almost right away.
Okay.
Because it's like 15, 20 grand a year.
What did your dad fish? So he obviously did tuna harpoon and then lobster.
He did mostly lobster later on in his life.
Okay.
Just because, it's a shorter day, it's structured. He was 71 when he died, and tuna fishing's it's a lot of wear and tear on the body. Not that lobstering's not, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
So he kind of made tuna fishing like his hobby. It was still his passion, but to be able to compete in that tuna fishery at that age when there's such a small quota, you've got to go. And it's not like he didn't have it in him. He spent his whole life doing it, So, and it was kind of getting to the point where, he wanted to spend a lot more time with my mother and travel and do things like that. And he did. So, I mean, I give all the credit to my mother in the world, because, when you're in this type of industry, she never had a summer with him, and it was like she was a slave to the lifestyle. So, and it was tough. So he kind of pulled back, but he kept the boat. He got when he stopped fishing, tuna for, as hard as he did, he got a lot of offers on the boat because, I mean, it's just, he was always known as being meticulous in the way that he kept all of his stuff up. And like, he had the nicest harpoon boat there is. So, and some of the offers got really ridiculous. And I was like, are you sure you want to turn that number down? Because it was, some of the numbers were stupid. Like 2 or 3 times what the boat's actually physically worth, and one of the offers came from one of the Wicked Tuna guys. Okay. And my father spent like half an hour on the phone with him, kind of like, and I called the guy back because it's TJ Ott. He's a pretty good friend of mine. Yeah. And I called TJ back and I'm like, bro, I love you, but you're wasting your time. There's no way he's going to sell you this boat. He's just not ready, Yeah. So then, when he passed, we sold the lobster boat, and I kind of had to make the decision of if we're gonna keep this boat, I'm gonna have to make it at least profitable in some way, So I was gonna have to fish it. And then, I don't know if it's just like divine intervention or happenstance, but then this opportunity came along, and I was like, okay. Let's
makes sense.
Let's do this thing, So
do you still do you still have somebody running your lobster boat?
No, I'm all in on this, man. I sold all my other stuff. This is all I got. This is when I go big,
Hey,
Ken,
dude, exactly
so it's just like when I decided I wanted to do strongman, I bought my industrial bay, I loaded it with cool stuff, and I'm like, let's go. Let's do it. So no half stepping here, all the way or none at all.
I like it. So obviously, like I said, we've seen 2 episodes. Mm-hmm. I mean, I love this show. I'm a big Deadliest Catch guy,
right?
And just being able to like you're getting immersed in it, And I think it's such a cool idea for a show. Or not even an idea, but it's like the premise of it overall is like there's so much that goes into it. Like I have no idea about the spotter planes. Mm-hmm. That blows my mind. Yeah. The fact that these guys, like you said in number 2, it was like aviation fuel's $10 a gallon, and
it's all pretty expensive.
I mean, what are guys spending to fish for a day if they're using a spotter plane?
Well, so in the show, and again, I don't know how anybody else runs their business or whatnot. Yeah. I don't know the arrangement between different harpooners and their planes. Sure. But when I'm using a spotter plane, I pay the spotter plane 30% off the top of whatever we catch. Wow. Which seems big, but the advantage that it gives you is huge, So, and just like with the boat and all that, a guy owns a plane, like there's a lot of maintenance and a lot of expenses involved. And when you pay a guy by the hour, that's guaranteed money for him. Sure. So sometimes it's like when you have exactly. When you have an employee and you pay them by the hour, it's like, well, are they going to pack knee sleeves faster if they're being paid by the hour, or if you pay them by the piece? Yeah. So that's why I always, including with my deckhands, like I give them a percent because if
the more you catch, the more you make.
Exactly. So if you put that responsibility on the entire crew instead of just on me, and then I'm paying everyone in another way, everyone's motivated for us to catch fish. So if you pay a guy, 30%, then he's going to burn his eyes out of his head trying to find fish for you. Which is how my father always did it. And quite frankly, like my whole motto of this endeavor has been there's the right way, the wrong way, and the Billy way. And we do it the Billy way. So I like it. It's worked pretty well for the last 5 decades. So we'll keep doing it.
So with the spotter plane, is that are they dedicated to the tuna fishery, or are they doing other things on the side if when there's not tuna?
No, I mean, most of them are actually, a lot of pilots just kind of, I don't want to say fly for fun, but like they're recreational pilots. There's a few guys that they fly for, I forget the name of the company, but there's a plane company that brings people back and forth from Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard to the it's like Cape Air or Island Air or something like
Cape
that.
Air. It's
Yeah,
Cape
whatever.
Air,
Right,
yes.
whatever it is. So there's a couple guys that they used to do that, and they're retired pilots now. One of the pilots that we used to work with was a retired Delta pilot. So just guys that love to be in the air. You know, it's just like, you know, when we stopped competing actively in strongman, like you still lift weights, you still have to do it. You know, so why not make a couple bucks in the side spot and some tuna fish?
Why not, dude?
So
let's touch upon, or not touch upon, but let's deep dive a little bit more into like the dad stuff and relationship and all that sort of stuff. So obviously, you know, it goes without saying, your dad had a massive influence on you.
I mean, he taught me everything I know.
Yeah.
Literally. I mean, not just about fishing, but about everything.
Yeah.
So,
and I completely understand this. And it's hard to lose a parent. And it's like, I think, because correct me if I'm wrong, your dad passed away unexpectedly. Am I correct in saying that?
He passed away fighting a bluefin tuna,
That's
man.
what I thought.
Yeah. He had a heart attack reeling in a fish. So, which is crazy too, because the thing that I don't even know if they're going to touch upon this in the show, but when my dad was 17 years old, he worked at his father's restaurant, my grandfather. They had a restaurant in Harvard Square called the One Potato, Two Potato. He was a Greek dude, run a restaurant, fits the stereotype.
Sure.
And my father would go out and he would catch fish for the restaurant.
Oh, wow.
So that's what he did. His summer vacations when he was in school, he would go out and he would catch fish, and they'd have, whatever he caught on special that night in the restaurant. Okay.
That's cool.
It's pretty sweet. Yeah.
That's super cool.
So then when my father graduated high school, my grandfather was just like, okay, Billy, you're going to run the restaurant. Yeah. And my father was like, I think I just want to go fishing. And they had a huge falling out over it. And my dad got in his car. I've heard this story more than more times than he got in his Chevy Nova. He drove down to Cape Cod. He hit every harbor on the Cape, and nobody would take him on until the end of Cape Cod is P-Town.
Yep.
And he worked his way all the way up to P-Town, and he was walking down the docks, and he's like running out of boats to try to get onto, and he's like, shit, I'm not going to be able to get a job. And there was this one boat called the Dixie. And he got a job on the Dixie, and the deckhand on the Dixie, his name was Johnny Woods. Okay. And so my father and Johnny, they met back in, I think that was like 69. Okay. And they fished together their entire lives. They were best friends. I called him my Uncle Johnny, you know? And the exact year is going to elude me, but it was probably 2006 or 2007. My Uncle Johnny died of a heart attack fighting a bluefin tuna on fishing ledge. Okay.
What?
And when that happened, my father was probably mid to late 50s. Mm-hmm. And like the big thing that everyone was talking about was if Johnny had a defibrillator in the boat, he might've made it. Because they have the portable defibrillators because emergencies at sea are no joke. It's tough to get an ambulance out there. So I started harping on my father. I'm like, we got to get one of these things. Yeah. We got to get one of these things. And it was like, I don't know if it was a sense of like pride or like fighting his own mortality, but he fought me on it for a while until I finally, because they're expensive. You know?
But I looked at them when I had the gym. That's like at least $1,000 a piece. I think they were.
Yeah, they're like. The good ones are like 1,800. You know, you want the ones where you just slap the pads on and it automatically does.
You don't have to think about it.
Yeah, exactly. So, and he finally got one, and we had it on the lobster boat because that's where we spent 90% of our time. And it just so happens that the day that he hopped on the tuna boat to go fishing, he forgot to bring the defibrillator, and so he died the exact same way as his best friend, like 15 years later at the same spot. So
like goosebumps.
Yeah, it's trust me, dude. It's bizarre. It's almost, and I don't know about like, I don't know what happens after you die. And like, I'm not a super religious person. Yeah. Like obviously I was raised Greek Orthodox, but like, I it is what it is. But like the fact that it's almost like he willed himself to, because he always said, he's like, when I go, I want to go at sea. And it was just, because I remember, throughout the years, obviously in the fishing industry, guys die, I don't say all the time, but like, it's not uncommon for guys to die at sea. Yeah. And, whenever someone that we knew when a tragedy happened, my father was always like, he's like, God, that sucks, but those lucky pricks, and I never understood what he meant, but honestly, it didn't really like click with me until Johnny died. And he was just like, there's no other way that he would have wanted to go. And so I take very, very small consolation. I always say that I would have preferred for it to have happened 15 years down the road when he was in his mid 80s instead of 70. But
dude, I totally get that one.
Yeah,
100%.
so.
Do you also want to die on the water?
I was going to ask that too. I was like, I don't know if I can ask that.
Is that morbid or?
I mean, I'll probably have a better opinion on that in like 20 years. So I either want to die on the water or I just want to drop dead after I pull like a 500 kilogram deadlift. Eddie Holland. So I just want to do something totally epic. Well, and then like if I go, I go.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have the same like heartstring pull to it as your dad did? Or do you feel like you kind of fell into it because of your dad?
It's funny because I mean, fishing is always it's a generational industry. It's like it's almost always a family business because this is so expensive to get into that if you just get, like if you wanted to go buy a boat right now, buy permits and buy all the stuff that you need, I mean, it's $1 million investment. And you're not going to be good at it right away.
Exactly.
So it's like
your payoff for your the ability to recoup it is multi-year now.
Right. So it's like, so now you kind of have to, if you weren't born into the industry, like, and you didn't get into it young, it's almost impossible to get into and be profitable, So, but I always I absolutely love what I do. I love my work and I love my hobby equally.
Yeah.
But it's to the point now where the worst part about the fishing industry is all the politics and government intervention that it's, my father fell in love with fishing because he just got in his boat and went fishing. Now it's like for example, when we land a tuna fish and bring it in, that fish gets its own individual tag, right? So that fish now has an ID number. I get a slip and I have 24 hours to report to the government a full trip report of, where we were, when we caught it, if we iced it, bled it, what time it was landed, what time we left the dock, how many people were on board. I mean, it's and in the middle of the summer when you're like, go.
That's rough.
Dude, when I get home and like I've been out in the water for 16 hours, the last thing I want to do is like fill out a report on so Uncle Sam knows what I'm doing,
Right.
So
you did all that labor and then you have to do the paperwork.
And I mean, and that's a very small as far as like, so then you do that and then you do your yearly trip reports and you have to do your permitting info and then your registration for the boat. It's like all the paperwork is just like, good Lord. I know that, it's 2025 and we live in a everything has to be cataloged and digitized and everything, but it's like, dude, I just want to go kill some fish. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's I didn't realize it was that in depth on the back end. I mean, I knew there was permits and stuff like that, but I didn't realize it was to that extent.
I feel like on the show they kind of highlighted a little.
A little bit, yeah.
It's not as much as the talking to you.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to, it's like you used to just be able to be a fisherman. Now you have to be a fisherman, an accountant, a lawyer, like everything, and especially with, I mean, and to add on top of all of that, my contract with the show was 47 pages long. So so I'm like flipping through all this stuff, and it's like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. This will void the contract. This will void the contract. Don't eat a black jelly bean on April 17th. Or it's like, oh my god. So yeah, it was they covered every possible what if this and that and the other thing, and which I understand because we live in a world where everybody sues everybody at the drop of a hat. So it's like they got to protect themselves.
Like we were talking about my father-in-law off the air. Like I was speaking to my mom this morning. She's like, I don't even clean my driveway in the UK anymore because if the postman slips and falls, he'll sue you,
right? Or
can sue you because it's on your property. I'm like, it's too much these days,
Yeah, it's to the point where if someone goes to rob your house and they fall down the stairs, they're going to sue you.
I know.
So, it's crazy, man.
Your stairs are on.
But paperwork it's unfortunately, a huge part of my life. And that's why, getting back to the fishing is 100% my passion and I love it. And even though I have to go through all of this crap to be able to go do it, when you leave the dock and you're in the tower and, you see the sun cracking over the horizon and you take a big breath of fresh salt air and it's just like yeah, it's all worth it.
That's cool.
So, and there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. And, I'm very, very fortunate that I've had the ability to be a part of an industry that gives me the freedom to be able to then also pursue strength.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge inhibitor for a lot of people is like, even like, I talk to Inez a lot.
Yeah.
And, she was like she'd have trouble like getting days off from work to like go to compete, the Arnold. Yeah. And I'm just like,
well, it was like, who am I thinking of? Cale Beck, starting strongman. We went to China together and a bunch of other guys. This must have been, 2013, I think it was. And he left his job to go and compete over there because they wouldn't give him time.
Right.
It's like, I know, like I get on Michelle at times because it's like, with work, I'm like, just take the unpaid day vacation. Like, screw it. Let's go do whatever. And I think because my mentality is very much like, you have no idea what's coming around the corner.
Right.
You have no idea. And that's something I sort of try and live my life with, where it's like, as long as you're being responsible financially and blah, 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 go and live,
100%. Yeah.
So circling back to the dad stuff, because I'm intrigued. How was your upbringing? How did you go out? I'm assuming you were out on the boat a lot. What kind of parent was it? Like, how was he fucking hard going? Because my dad was pretty hard going at times. Or
so it's funny you asked it, because I was literally just talking. The hell was I talking about? So I was 9 when I started on the stern of my dad's boat. Right, summer vacation of 4th grade.
Wow.
And I'm a 9-year-old kid, and I just thought I was going to just be on the boat, and I was put to work like right from the start, So, and it was my responsibility when I was a kid to, when they would bring fish in, they would just get re-rigged up again and get right back in the fish, and it was my job to take care of the fish. Okay. So like bleed it, gut it, ice it, all that and whatnot. So
and that was tuna as well, right?
Yeah, all bluefin.
Okay, cool.
Bluefin harpoon. And I'll never forget.
And they're not small fish. So at 9 years old,
are you kidding me, man? These things are,
probably bigger
huge.
than you. Yeah. 9.
So I'll never forget, like my first season on the boat. I was, my dad showed me exactly what to do, and he was like, he'll teach everything you need to know, but don't make him repeat himself. Okay. Like pay attention. This is how and realistically, I was born in 86, so I started fishing in 95, 96. That was like the middle of the huge tuna boom.
Okay,
that's when the Japanese market was so hot, and we were shipping all these fish to Tokyo, and they were worth $30, $40 a pound sometimes. So like it was big money. I have seen some of my father's tax returns, and I'm like, oh my God, Jesus Christ. Oh, it's crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
So, we were doing, 60, 70 fish in a season, and, they're worth a lot of money. Yeah. So it was very, very cutthroat, very, very fast paced. And for my father to put me on the deck at 9 and be a part of that machine, was a big responsibility at that young of an age. Yeah. So, so I remember we were fishing out of Gloucester that year, and so it was probably like 2 or 3 weeks into the season. So I knew what I was supposed to do. I had the system down, and they stick the first fish and they bring it in, and I was too small to like wrestle the fish around myself, so they would put them where they wanted them, and I would start cleaning the fish. Right, so they stuck the first fish and they put it on the port side, and the biggest thing about bluefin tuna is you want the fish to be appealing in the auction, so the color, the shape, you get a higher price if all that's like perfect. So we always keep the fish out of the sun. So as soon as the fish gets on the boat, we cover them with tarps, wet them down, so it doesn't get like dry and cracks. Yeah. So anyway, so they got the fish in, and I, instead of doing what I was supposed to do, I opened up the cooler and got a lemonade out and cracked the lemonade and sat on the gunnel and started drinking my lemonade, right? And like, I just felt this, like my spidey sense started tingling, and I look up in the tower and I just see him staring down at me like like raging, and he climbs down the tower, and he just he's like, you're a part of the crew. You got to do your job. You're sitting on the rail, drinking a soda. You got a job when you do that when your job's done. And I was just like, and that was just
fun.
like,
This is a job.
yeah. So, and, but I will say that at 9 years old, I was getting paid $50 a fish to take care of that. Was crazy. You know what I mean? So like at the end of the year, like I would have a huge pile of cash, and I kept it in a pencil box, a green pencil box, right? And at the end of the year, my father took me to the bank and we opened a savings account. And yeah, I mean, I was balling as a kid.
That's cool.
I had all my own money to buy my own stuff, and so it was cool. But that's how I learned. You work hard, you have money, you can buy cool shit. And that's the basis of life, dude.
Yeah, I mean, like I think there's so many people these days who's like, whether they're just getting into working age or have been in at working age for a while, where it's like the work ethic is just
garbage,
not the fucking same, crazy. And it's hard for me to understand because I was, the same, like where like very physical with my dad, whether it's like doing like yard work and all that sort of stuff, working on cars, not as a job, but like, recreationally, so to speak. But I mean, like my first job, I worked in a sawmill.
There you go.
Stacking lumber.
No joke.
No. And it's like, and because I was I'm trying to think, I was 230, 240 at 16. So they just looked at me and they were like,
so you haven't grown since 16?
No. No. But they looked at me and they were like, well, you're the strong guy. So you're doing all this hard shit.
So you're just lumping wood around all day
fucking
long.
Day. Yeah. And like other guys have got their automated machines in the nice fucking shed. I'm outside in the rain, pissing rain, lugging huge fucking pieces of timber around.
Yeah.
And when I sit and think about the money side of stuff, I'm like, I remember getting like my first paycheck and being like, man, I'm going to make so much money. And it comes through, you're like, what the fuck's this?
Yeah, right.
You're like, where's it all gone?
Yeah.
But that was the same thing. Like it taught me, hey, if I want to buy whatever the fuck, it's 10 hours work.
Right.
It's however many 100 pieces of wood put away and all that sort of stuff. And I just feel like in this day and age, like that work ethic and that maybe connection to effort equals reward is completely gone.
Well, I mean, now it's just, entitlement more than effort to reward. It's just, I should have this because I say so. And it's like, well, it's not so much.
It's a nice theory.
Yeah.
But, in practice, it's not really there.
No. And I mean, and I'd much rather bust my ass to try to get something cool because then when you work for it, it's just like you can have some pride in it,
Yeah.
It's way sweeter.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, and not only that, but I definitely feel like, having that, being raised in such a physical line of work where, when I was a kid, I was on the tuna boat or, in the off season, you're working with lines and ropes or stacking traps in the yard or whatever. I mean, people ask me like, I just had my surgery and, I sat on the couch for like 5 months and like, my first heavy squat workout back, I squatted 700. Yeah. And I genuinely believe that it's just because of that, like, since I was 9 years old, I've had a physical job where I'm just built that way,
I completely understand. So with the way your dad was with instilling that work ethic and all that sort of stuff, I know you have a daughter. Is that something you try and instill on her as well?
So,
or how do you approach it?
Yeah, it's definitely
because it's a different deal in the day honestly, and age and gender.
I can.
You're like, do I need to talk about this?
I have anything in the world, I can be hard as fuck, but when it comes to that girl,
you're
come
screwed.
on, bro. Yeah, there's no. I mean, she's 12 now, and it's just like.
So she's not had 3 seasons in the boat then?
No.
I was gonna say,
so I will say she has been out and banded lobsters for me and all that, but she's definitely my daughter she's big into like drama and plays and whatnot. And she gives her all in that. And I always did kind of try to teach her that, you know, when you make a commitment to something,
Yep.
you have to see it through, you know, like she started playing soccer and she didn't really like it very much. And she just wanted to not do it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, look, you have to finish the season and, you know, you're part of a team now.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to give your best effort to fulfill your obligation to be a part of the team. And she wasn't having fun because she wasn't very good, you know? So we went out in the backyard and like, I put her in the goal and I started, you know, I told her, I said to her, I said, look, if you can play with me and be able to stop, you know, then when you play with your friends and these kids, it's going to be no problem, you know? Mm-hmm. So we practiced a ton and by the end of the season, she got a lot better and it was more fun for her, but then she just decided to go in a different direction. And I said to her, I said, look, you fulfilled your obligation. You kept your word. You kept your promise, which is all that you have in this world, which is something that my father taught me. You know, the biggest deals are done on a handshake and a promise. Mm-hmm. And she decided to, you know, do other things, and she found what she truly loves to do, and I'm happy for her. And you know, if she ever, you know, has the desire to fish or lift weights, I'd be more than happy to, you know, take her on and do whatever she wants to do. But if she wants to sing and act, then I'll, you know, come to all of her shows and, you know, pick her up from drama class late at night. And, you know, it's just being a dad, man.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the thing is, you know, that's the biggest point, I think, is like, you know, being a dad and just being there, being present, all that sort of stuff. But it's also like instilling, you know, the work ethic and all that sort of stuff of hard labor is one thing.
Right.
But you're still instilling the same work ethic. The expression of it is just a little different, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think the way that everybody has their own individual ways of like, you know, teaching their kids or like teaching them lessons and whatnot, which is why like, and I've always respected guys that go out of their way to be good dads, you know? And I mean, like a perfect example is, you know, Mike O'Connor's a great friend of mine, and he was at Clash 2 years ago and he popped his bicep in warm-ups for the first event, you know, fucking blew it right off and he finished the show, you know? And a huge reason why he finished the show is because his kids were there. Yeah. And maybe someday down the line, they'll remember that he didn't quit and they'll push through, and you know, because your kids just emulate what they see you doing.
That's what I was going to say. It's like they're like, from my experience, at least, not being a parent yet, but like from my experience with my parents, like you, like I said, you emulate and you learn by example,
right?
You know, and I think that's the biggest thing. I think we just gotta the not quitting the soccer or the not quitting sawmill when it fucking sucked and it was whatever, you know. I think that changes you as a person and changes your perspective to life, I think.
Well, I mean, the biggest, I learned to never be a quitter because, and this is one of those stories where like I'm gonna have trouble getting through it, but when I was 3 years old, the guy that's my wheelman on the show, Kevin, he was my father's deckhand Kevin was around the day that I was born.
Wow.
So he fished with my father for over 40 years. When I was 3 years old, they were out fishing and there was a faulty weld in the tower and the tower snapped.
Oh, fuck.
And they both fell and Kevin hit his head and was knocked completely unconscious. And my father hit the left side of his ribs and broke all of his ribs and put his ribs through his large intestine, his spleen. It's just shredded all of his internal organs.
What's the height of those? Like 20 plus feet?
It's like, I think ours is 18. Okay. So
down near it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's, I mean, when you're up there, it's high, you know?
High. Yeah.
So I remember him saying that he just remembered hearing like a snap and saying, we got to get the fuck out of here. And then he doesn't remember hitting the side of the boat, but he remembers feeling the water and then coming up and looking and seeing the boat just going away, you know? And then he looked around for Kevin and he saw Kevin face down in the water.
Oh my God.
So he swam over to Kevin and picked him up and, Jesus Christ, held him above water for 4 hours until they were rescued.
4 hours?
Yeah. So the boat luckily was on autopilot, so it was going in a straight line. And it ran into a fleet of rod and reel guys. And the guy saw the tower and like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck? And so they followed the track backwards.
Yeah.
And they were able to find him. A guy named Ron Menard found him and pulled him out of the water. And the only reason that my father even lived was because the neutral buoyancy of the water, because he had a collapsed lung too.
Okay.
So when they pulled him on the boat, his lung just filled up with blood and he started choking with blood and spitting blood up and shit. So, yeah, so they medevaced him to Boston, and he spent probably 3 months in the hospital.
Holy shit!
Because he was just they had to
so beat up.
They had to remove like 80% of his large intestine, 30% of his small intestine. They had to take his spleen. He lost part of his kidney. I mean, he was toast. And obviously, for my mother to get that call, it was it was just it was the second worst call she's ever gotten, So, and for her to be that strong of a woman, to be able to get 2 of those phone calls in one lifetime, it's just so, my father got a lawyer for legal advice, and the lawyer was like, well, we can sue the guy that built the tower, but you're going to have to like take some time off and not, make it like you're really, I mean, he was fucked up, but he was like, make it like you're more fucked up than you are. And my father was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going fishing. Yeah. And he went fishing that winter and had one of the best codfish seasons he's ever had. So I mean, so as far as, I know everybody thinks that their dad's the toughest guy in the world, but tell me a story tougher than that.
Tough. Yeah.
So,
holy shit.
So, I mean, people can't even hold themselves up for 4 hours half of the time.
Yeah.
To hold another person up.
It was definitely, and he said, I remember, as an adolescent, and I kind of got a little older and kind of realized like the severity of the situation. I asked him, I was like, what was going through your head? Like, were you scared? And he was like, I was fucking pissed. He was like, because I bought this tower from this guy and I relied on him to, because it's a dangerous job, even when shit's built right, Yeah. So he's like, he did a half-ass job, and now I'm sitting here in the middle of the fucking ocean with my best friend, knocked unconscious. I got 2 young kids at home, and here I am. And he's like, he said, I just kept saying to myself, I'm not going to die today. And he made it. So
he's so lucky he didn't also pass out.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he was just in shock or if the I can't even imagine the adrenaline dump, But so there's a funny part to this story. Imagine that.
Might seem pretty serious so far.
So he had to have several surgeries to get all that shit done, right? And probably, I don't know, like 3 weeks after the accident, because he was intubated for a long time. Yeah. And about 3 weeks after the accident, they let us, like, us being my sister and I, because my mother had been in to see him. Sure. But he was in good enough shape for us to be able to see him and not like be upset about it. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So my mother brought my sister and I in to see him, and I had just turned 4. The accident happened on September 19th. My birthday is September 30th. So I just turned 4. And I'm sitting there, and my mother's just talking to my father, and he's on a, not a tube, but he's got like an oxygen mask going on. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm 4 years old, and I'm looking at all these buttons on the side of the bed. Right. And my dad sees me like looking at the buttons, and he's like, and my mother's like, what's wrong? And I'm going to push one. And he's been cut open 6. He had a huge scar from his sternum all the way down to his belly button. They opened him up and they did everything they had to do. And of course, the little bastard that I am, I hit this button and the bed starts folding up. And he's like, oh. And the doctor comes in and they shoot him up with fucking morphine. And but I was so upset, like I thought I killed him. You know what I mean?
My God.
So a few days after that, right? He said to the doctor, he was just like, look, I need you to just give me whatever you need to give me to just kill the pain enough so I can like stand up and take a couple steps, because he wanted to stand up to show me that he was going to be okay. So
Oh, it's like, it's just wild. It's like hearing some of that stuff. It brings so many memories back.
Yeah, I mean,
my dad, you know.
I just think that, you know, anybody who has a good connection with their father, it's just like, you know, your parents are just the most important thing in your life, man. You know, and it's just I genuinely believe that, you know, a lot of shit's happened in the last quarter century, you know, with just the way that we are as a society. Mm-hmm. But I genuinely think that we would all be so much better off if we just focused on the nuclear family and keeping that unit as solid as we can. Because,
well, I think to expand on just what you said about like your parents being so important and like that big part, I feel like people don't share that view these days. I think they do to an extent, but also they're like, oh, fuck, my dad's, you know, oh, my dad's so frustrating or whatever. You know what I mean?
Oh, believe me. I mean, I said that a million times as a kid.
But I think there's times where it's like, oh, like so-and-so is doing whatever and it's so stupid. I'm like, you know, my mom's bothering me and like, yeah, okay. But
well, I mean, you guys are gonna have different point of views because you lost lost family. But there's
you know, it's different. Like there's gonna come a day where you're grateful that they are
gratitude.
You know,
I mean, I've always said that when I was a teenager, the reasons that I hated my father the most are the reasons that I love him the most now. You know, because he
I'd probably echo that.
Yeah. I mean, just because, I mean, his life experience, you know how it is when you're a teenager. You think you know everything and you're invincible. You know, I mean, you do a bunch of dumb shit and you look back and I mean, I look at, you know, my friends and I and all the stuff we did, and it's just like, how did we not get arrested or killed? You know, And I mean,
I completely agree. Completely agree.
And but yeah, he was always looking out for me, and you know, and my father, and I the thing that I took away from my father as far as parenting is that I've never talked to my daughter. I always talk to her like she's an adult, you know, and whenever she gets into trouble or does something, and I assume she's a good kid, so it's not like she does much, but like I always sit her down and I go, look, kid, everything that you think you're going to do, I've already done, and you can't bullshit me. You can't lie to me. I know when you're lying. I know, you know, and it's like, I'm not going to sit there and be like, so, you know what? It's just like, no, we're going to talk like adults. You're 12, but you're old enough. You have cognitive thought and you know what the fuck you did was wrong. So we're going to talk about it, you know? So, and that's how my father always talked to me. It was never like, I was never treated with, you know, kid gloves, and I was always held responsible for everything that I did, and it's benefited me greatly in everything else that I've done.
That was similar to me. Like, and I think, like you said, I think again, coming back to the work ethic and all that stuff being instilled, I think it completely changes your perspective of life, but then how you operate through life as well.
Yeah. So, and that's always, it was a great life lesson, because whenever I'm going through something that is, you know, challenging, I mean, like whether it was, you know, recoveries from surgeries or like, you know, financial hardships or whatever. And I'm just like, you know, if that old man didn't die that day and he could survive that, then what am I fucking complaining about, you know? So,
well, it's funny because I don't know if you know a guy called Seth Feroci. He owns a company called Axe and Sledge and All American Roughing. He's a IFBB pro bodybuilder.
Okay.
And I follow him on Instagram. I watch a lot of his stuff. And he has this thing where it's like, the motto of the company is, I don't have problems. I just have more work to do.
Right.
And it's like you sit and think about it. And then, because I was listening to a podcast or a video of him yesterday, and it was a case of like, if you think about the absolute worst thing that could happen, you know, like the example he gave was like, no, you meet like your partner and they do all this stuff for you. They love you to death and they support you and blah, blah, blah. And one day, you know, they kiss you in the, as they're going out the door to go to the store or whatever, and they never come back. And you're hit by a drunk driver or whatever. That's it. They're gone. That's a fucking problem.
Right.
Everything else sort of pales in comparison.
Yeah.
You know, and I think over the last couple of years, like I've started trying to adopt that a bit more where I'm like, okay, this is not really a problem.
Right.
It's stressful, it's whatever, but what can I do to resolve that in whatever it is, you know, whether it's work or relationship or training or whatever, you know?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, well, did you die? No. Okay. Well, then guess what? You get a chance tomorrow to fix whatever's going on, you know? So, which, you know, it's, and I do think that, you know, growing up in an industry where, you know, I was introduced to death at a very young age, you know, because, it's funny because, Canby made a joke last week. And I think Nick's just Nick, you know, whatever. We all love Nick. Yeah. But we were talking about the show, and Canby was just like, he goes, "Oh, you should tell him that you survived the perfect storm." And I was like, "Well, Nick, all my dad's friends died on that boat." So, and he was like, "Oh, okay." And he realized, like, you know, so, right. So, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't know that." And I'm like, "Of course you didn't, man. It's like, it's all good."
That's
you know,
like when you make
like,
your mom a joke and their mom had died.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's not what I wanted to do here.
But I was like, yeah, my dad was friends with all those guys. So, and
I did not know that.
And that was 1991. And the Andrea Gale.
That's what I got to say, the Andrea Gale, right?
Yeah, the Andrea Gale. So one of the guys that was fishing on that boat got fired the trip before they lost the boat, and the guy that got fired then worked for my father after that. So yeah, so it's it was crazy. I mean, the fishing community is a pretty tight knit guys. You know, I mean, everybody knows everybody. So it's like, it's funny because, you know, I hear from a lot of people and they're like, "Oh yeah, I knew your father," and I'm like, well, I mean, everyone did. You know, so but yeah, that was I was 6 years old when that happened, man. Wow. So it was crazy. And, you know, and obviously it's like, you know, for my dad to sit me down and like explain what happened and everything. And it's like to be able to kind of think about the fact that, like, okay, so these 6 dudes went out fishing and they got stuck in a storm and the boat sank and they all died, you know, and then being 6 years old and like having to rationalize the fact that, like, well, that's what my dad does, you know, and it's always like, but, you know, my father always taught me that you have to respect the ocean, and, you know, you have to, like, just don't do anything, you know, crazy, and you should be okay. And I mean, throughout the years that I fished with him, you know, he definitely, we pushed a little bit, but, but, you know, it was so, I mean, just growing up, it was like, I always had that in the back of my head that, you know, there's a lot of guys that they go to work and, like you said, you know, they give their wife a kiss and they don't come back. They leave, you know, families and children. And it's a real, which I guess is part of the infatuation that people have with fishing. You know, it's just, it's a dangerous job, and it's a dangerous job, you know, regardless of what you're doing. And, you know, which I think, I mean, danger is entertainment. So that's
you're dealing with a crazy area of Mother Nature that a lot of people don't even like I talked to you about. Like, I have no idea what the ocean's like, to be honest. Like, you are, like,
it can change really fast.
Scary no, it's so scary to me. Like, oof.
So how far are you going when you're doing swordfish? Or not swordfish, sorry, tuna.
So for whatever reason this year, we found just some of the biggest fish we've ever caught, like literally 6 miles outside of the harbor. It was awesome. Nice. I didn't burn any fuel. I was like, you know, it's because I mean, you know, realistically, so tuna fish are pelagic fish, which means they swim around the entire ocean, much like swordfish. So wherever they go, you have to follow them. So, I mean, there were plenty of times when I was a kid, I mean, we would end up in Portland, Maine, or we'd end up on Montauk off New York. And so it was, the cool part about that was, like, growing up, it was always an adventure. Like, you left the dock in the morning and you didn't know where you were going to end up that night. Were you still doing
day trips then when you, like, for tuna, when you went those distances?
When you're doing, you know, sushi quality bluefin, like, you have to get it in that day. So, but I mean, the boat does 22 knots, and I mean, we would steam 100 miles offshore and get fish and then steam back in. And then there's only so many hours in the day. So, you turn right back around and just burn that candle on both ends until you can't burn anymore. And so it was, I when I was a teenager, there was one year, I was probably 14 or 15 years old, that we fished out of Portland, Maine. And, we lived on the boat for the summer, and I slept in one of the tuna bags and had to use a survival suit as a pillow. And because my dad and Kevin snore like wicked. I mean, I snore too, but I was a kid back then.
Yeah.
And so they'd be down in the racks, and like I'm 15 and I can't, I'm just like two guys sawing wood. So I would go out on the deck and put myself in a tuna bag, and it's the middle of July, so it's not like you're worried about staying warm. Yeah, exactly. So cold, you just fall asleep staring at the stars, and
doesn't sound a lot bad to me.
It's awesome, dude. It was a great way to grow up. Yeah. I'm so fortunate for the childhood that I had and the way that I grew up, because it was just like, it taught me a lot about just life, and it taught me a lot. And I really just, I feel so bad for these kids these days that like they grow up in front of a screen, and they like get outside, do something cool. It's just this world has so much more to offer than Wi-Fi.
Like, I sit and think about it, like how we were as kids, and it's like, sure, like I had a PlayStation, but I mean, I was outside 90% of the time, especially in summer. Like just being physical, seeing friends, doing whatever. Like I was lucky where I'm trying to think how old I was. Like 9, we moved up to Shetland, so like the islands at the top of the north of Scotland.
Okay,
and completely different way of life, because it's a lot smaller, and you got the ocean right there. One of my buddies lived, 20-minute walk from the ocean. So you'd go around there, and then you'd screw around and walk down and go and have a massive big bonfire. And
exactly.
Here you're like 11, 12 years old, having this ginormous fire, throwing fucking aerosol cans and blowing things to smithereens.
Man. It's like, I don't know if you saw, but like I there was a news story that I saw like last month where a mother got arrested in like Minnesota for letting her kid walk into the store like a mile down the road. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
We used to ride our bikes down to like the mini mart.
Exactly.
Like all the time.
Yeah, and it's funny because I saw that and I was like, man, when we were living in Shetland, like I was, like I said, 9, 10, 12, or 10, 12, 11 years old. Not that old.
Right.
Out until like 9, 10 o'clock at night. No cell phones.
Well, bro, that's like, I don't know if you, when did you move to America?
And in 2013.
2013. Okay, so you weren't around for this. There used to be a commercial on American television at like 9 o'clock that was like, do you know where your kids are? It's like they had to remind our parents that we were not like, oh shit, the kids?
Because they're like, thank God they're gone.
Yeah, exactly. Like sun up, we're out the door and we go hiking or fishing or like, build a fort in the woods or just beat the shit out of each other, and we'd be gone all day. Yeah. And then it was like, be home before dark. And it's like the commercial came on, are your kids home? It's, oh shit, where are them kids?
My mom would like yell. Other moms would whistle. Like, we always had like our little calls that our moms would do. I think one mom had like a bell.
Well, I think about it so much now, especially like, we're starting to try and have a family. And it's like, how do you approach it in this day and age?
Approach just parenthood
and,
that's a long topic.
Yeah. And like giving like, because I feel like for us, in like our generation, we grew up somewhat independently because of the ability to go and do shit, and that's not really the same these days.
We've seen the like progression of technology, so we've kind of seen what's happened.
But then even just like
it's funny though, because I feel like I'm wondering, when we were doing what we were doing, did our parents look at us and be like, "Wow, those little pussies, they're not like," you know what I mean? Like, what did our parents do when they were kids? You know what I mean? What were you, like operating heavy machinery at 6? You know, so like, because I mean, like nowadays it's and luckily enough, I mean, my daughter she loves to play outside, and she has friends in the neighborhood, and they go play. But like, it's just there are kids that, they get out of school and they don't do after school activities. They don't do anything extra. They don't play sports, and they come home and they plop themselves down in front of the TV or in front of a tablet. And then,
zero social interaction.
Zero social interaction. They eat all this crap food, and that's why I think it's like, I hate to sound like the old, not that I give a shit what anybody cares about me, but like the biggest problem we have in society today is that this whole generation, nobody's ever been punched in the fucking face, you know? And, like, really, you know? Right. And like everybody's a keyboard warrior and everybody's so brave. And it's like, because everyone, and I'm going to tell you this right now, and I'm going to shout a guy out, because the only person that's ever had the balls to say anything to my face is Josh Hatfield. When he had a problem with me, he found me at the Arnold and he was like, hey, you said this, what the fuck's up? And we talked about it and we squashed it and now we're boys. Yeah. But other than that, no one's ever came to my face and said, hey, so I have a lot of respect for Josh for doing, and he's a fucking country boy. Like, he don't give a fuck. He's been in fights his whole life too. He doesn't give a fuck, you know? So it's like, so I had a lot of respect for him for doing that. But other than Josh, no one's ever said anything to my face. You can imagine the amount of shit that's been said either through a screen, behind my back, or whatever. And it's like, dude, if you don't have the balls to come up and like try to squash it with me, don't shut the fuck up, you know? So it's like, but anyway, had to get one controversial strongman thing in there. So, you know.
But I mean, that's life in general these days, though.
Yeah,
that's
way too easy to talk shit
these days, you know?
Yeah.
So much talking shit, so much, you know,
complaining about whatever.
And blah, blah. And no one else say it to your fucking face.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So I would also argue that people forgot what it's like to be bored, especially like young kids.
Oh,
and that's one of the biggest issues, is because they're doing mindless shit on their iPads or their phone, and they're just scrolling through other people's opinions.
Yeah.
And that's all they're doing all day. They forget what it's like to be bored and to actually create and to like make up fun things to do on their own.
Entertain yourself.
Exactly. And that's what we always did growing up.
It's like the whole thing of why am I spacing? It's self-play. That's what it's called. Like when you're like younger, it's called self-play. And it's like kids don't have that these days.
Kids don't have imaginary friends anymore.
Dude.
Right? Which is horrible. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's a little creepy, but but like, I mean, like playing by yourself with Hot Wheels or Barbies, whatever you're doing, like
yourself, like
creating games. Like, like that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Parents are now like not developing, but like everything is like spoon fed.
Yeah.
There's no just like.
Well, and you can't blame them, right? Because we are addicted to them too, in a sense. And also, like, if you grow up watching these shiny, colorful, fun games, why the hell would you not want to keep playing those games? You know what I mean? So like, I can't blame them, but like, I mean, honestly, it's a problem.
My favorite thing to do when I was a kid was to go in the woods and take out my little Swiss Army knife and make a spear and chuck it at shit. So
weird. And now you're a harpoon hunter.
I know, right? Crazy, right?
That's an origin story.
Or make like fucking mud pies and all that.
We would make tree forts and stuff.
Like we had like a big like hedgerow in the back of our house, and like we climbed that thing, just lay on top of it, and it was like, fuck.
Yeah.
It's wild. We're aging ourselves right now.
Like, well, that was the fun of it. And that's what gets your juices going. That's what gets you creative. And also social.
Yeah. I remember my daughter one Christmas, she asked for, there was a game. It was the dumbest game in the fucking world. I hated it. It was called, Animal Crossing. Where you're like a little character, right? And like the first thing that you do is you go around and you pull weeds to get like shit to make and she's in the game like pulling weeds, right?
Like just go outside.
And my best friend Matt, who's known, he was there the day she was born. Like he walks in and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing, Penny?" She's like, "Pulling weeds," and he's like, "Why go out and pull weeds?" Like, actually, we've come to the point where we're gonna do menial chores in a video game instead of just doing them. What's next? Washing the dishes?
Dude, it was like, I saw this thing where it was about a boat, and I was like, "Yeah, we're now going to be wind powered." I'm like, "Oh, so you got sails again?" Like, what the fuck?
Wind powered, yeah. I've heard of that.
But yeah, no, I was. It's funny because there's a couple pages on Instagram about like being a '90s kid, and I'm just like I'm sure that obviously I'm biased, but like when you look at like I firmly believe that I was raised in like the greatest era.
Oh, me too.
Of like,
completely.
you know, it's like
fully agree.
We didn't have like you think like because our grandparents like you growing up during like world wars and like real like problems and shit, you know, and then like you know our parents didn't have like the technology that we had, and it's like the generation after us like there's too much technology. We hit that sweet spot in the late 80s and 90s where it was just like life. We hit the pinnacle of society in 1993.
Had enough communication,
right? But not too much.
It's like so people still have to call you on a landline.
Yeah, your parents couldn't track you down.
Let me tell you something. You want to know what builds character? When you're in high school and you call a girl at her house and her dad picks up the phone and you have to have the balls to be like, is Tina there? Who the fuck is this?
Or having to knock on someone's door.
Yeah.
Like
Now when kids want to talk to each other, it's like, oh, I'll
kids
text
don't
you.
even look you in the goddamn eye anymore.
They don't.
Exactly.
No.
You know? So all that stuff builds character that now nobody has to, you know, nobody's got to do it anymore. So it's like, but I digress. So
fuck.
Glad we got off on that tangent.
I could go on all day.
Completely going all day. And so I want to touch upon strongman and all that stuff because you said earlier that fishing allowed you to pursue strength. And I believe it was on the show that you mentioned basically that you built everything around like your career with lobster where you're like, okay, now I know at X time I'm getting home and I go training and all that sort of stuff. Is lobster season still is it like still tuna season or
they overlap.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's really you can't really do both at the same time. So when I decided I was going to do this show, like it was kind of you had to totally load in.
Yeah.
And you know, the biggest reason that I didn't tuna fish for a while was because I did want to pursue strength and see how far I could take it. So, you know, when we're shooting the show, it's super difficult because it's such an endeavor where, you know, we'll leave the dock, we'll fish our whole day, and then we'll get in, we'll clean the boat, we'll wrap up, and now it's time to shoot interviews about what happened during the day, and then they want to get, you know, even when you're in the morning walking down to the boat, you know, sometimes you have to walk down to the boat 3 or 4 times for them to get the right shot, and to be honest, man, I'm sure I'll get used to it. I mean, I already got used to it, but the first couple weeks, like, you feel like a jackass because like there's everybody else that's at the harbor, like actually just fishing and they're like going about their day and like being a commercial. And here you are like, oh, let's walk down the ramp again for the 4th fucking time. And all, you know what I mean?
That would be weird.
And it's like, oh, don't mind us guys. And there's 4 guys with cameras and there's a drone above you. And it's like, it's, I mean, and honestly, like for the potential of what this show could become, if it does become, you know, a Deadliest Catch or a Wicked Tuna, like if that's like, who cares, you know? So if that's the price to pay, I'll gladly foot the bill.
So how do you plan training now with the tuna fishery? Like obviously super hard labor. So I'm assuming you're not doing contest preps or plan to do contest preps during that period.
I mean, so it's a very short window. So the season starts on June 1st, and we have that 70 tons. And when that 70 tons is caught, season's over. You know?
What's that normally average out at?
We finished on July 17th this year. Wow. So we had a little over 6 weeks. Yeah. Which sometimes if the quota is getting caught really fast, then the government will pull quota from another category and give us an extra 10, 15 tons. But it's never, we never get like 200 tons, you know? We're always usually wrapped up mid-August at the latest.
Wow. Okay.
So realistically this year, I just, it was tough because I had such a burning desire to get back into it after literally missing podium by a half a point at 2 straight pro shows. And I'm like, oh God, this now I gotta, so I'm like, I just want to compete again, you know, but I'm like, no, this could be a huge opportunity. So I need to
go all in with this.
Right. Yeah. So I basically just looked at it as, you know, on days that we don't fish, I'm just going to, you know, basically take an off season, do some bodybuilding work and just try to keep myself, you know, in condition enough that I'm not starting from square one at the end of the season. And then as soon as, you know, as soon as the season wrapped up, I started, you know, prep for the OSG online qualifier. And, you know, I was first in the deadlift, first in the sandbag, somewhere in the top 10 in the yoke, and then went to chip in a nice easy log and blew my rotator cuff right off the bone. So, which honestly, man, was like I was so dejected, you know, like I was at Camby's and we were warming up, and his Slater log is just, it's the nicest log I've ever pressed on. Yeah. Perfectly balanced. It's like such a nice, easy, clean, awesome log. And my shoulder had been just kind of nagging me a little bit, but I was like, whatever, it'll be fine. So, you know, you do the strongman thing and you take a handful of ibuprofen and put some icy hot on it, and, you know,
I know all about that.
You go for it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And we were working up, and everything felt fine. Like I had no, like if I was in a lot of pain, I would have been like, as much as I hate to do this, I'm going to shut it down, you know? But my last warm up was, I think it was around 300 or 310. And, everything felt fine. I was like, wow, it actually felt really, really easy, you know? And then we put on like 340, and I went to press it, and halfway up, I felt, you know, pop, pop, pop. And my whole arm went completely numb. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's not good. So,
well, it's like when I tore my bicep, like, I'd had some tendonitis and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, it's fine. I'm working this, whatever. You know, like I'm still getting through stuff. And then boom, I was like, oh, fuck.
I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but I would say 80 to 90% of catastrophic injuries give you no warning. You know what I mean?
Completely
it's like,
agree with that. Yeah.
So it's like you're going about, and as crazy as it is a lot of them happen like on like your last warm up set. You know, it's not even like that
was the same as me. Know? It was like 308 on the axle. Clean it. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Right. Like I've done this how many hundreds of times, you know?
I mean, I think if I was to take a stab at it, and I don't know if anyone who knows what they're talking about wants to chime in, but when you're going for like an absolute all out max, I feel like you are so hyper focused on hitting all your cues, checking all the boxes. And it's when you get into that like 90 that you're complacent, exactly. And you don't respect the weight, and you're just like, well, this is going to be business as usual. And you're like, oh,
and that's how I used to do that. That was how I definitely was. And then after a number of injuries, I was like, okay, let's
focus in a little bit.
Focusing on like, okay, what's the cue? Every rep needs to be the same.
Yeah.
Because if you look at like Zadrunas, didn't matter if it was a 60 kilo deadlift or a 360 kilo deadlift.
Everything looked exactly the same.
Same speed, same setup, everything.
Which is what I tell, a lot. I shaved down my athlete roster considerably the last couple months, just because I want to be able to, being so busy, I want to be able to give the guys that actually are competitors my full attention.
Yeah, makes sense.
And one of the biggest things that I say to them is like, even if you're doing an AMRAP, right? You treat each individual rep as if it's its own 1 rep max, you know, because you never want to.
It's basically a big cluster set is the way I 100%.
View it. Yeah. I mean, reset after every rep and attack it as if it's an individual 1 rep max, because it's like you never, I mean, you always, if you're doing an AMRAP, like you want to have a number in your mind, but like you don't want to forget about rep 2, 3, and 4 if you're trying to get 7 or 8,
exactly.
You know? So,
yes,
because you got to get those good to get to where you want to go.
100%.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, so it was really just a glorified off season, and then went into that and got hurt, and I've been luckily enough, I have a really good surgeon who's put me back together 3 times now, and he knows me better than I know myself. He's seen the inside of me several times. So, Dr. Stanwood, Plymouth Bay Orthopedics. If you ever get hurt, give him a call.
Perfect.
But and I'm now just kind of getting to the point where I can lift my arm over my head. I've been doing like a lot of in my gym. I have a pillar that like supports my mezzanine, and I put my hand up against that and do the sliding.
The slides,
yeah. So, and I'm just trying to work on my range of motion. I would say I'm probably 2 or 3 weeks away from being able to put like a squat bar on my back.
Have you doing SSB then?
Yeah, I've been doing all SSB. So, which, I mean, SSB sucks.
Hey, that's character.
It's awesome, but awful.
Yeah, the only thing I've been able to squat for like over a year. And I finally pressed pain-free yesterday for the first time in over 12 months.
Right.
And it's such like a relief.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. I was grinning as I'm hitting this, like one of my sets, like, what the fuck? This is awesome.
And just so no one like gets misconstrued, SSB is awesome. Like it's good for building, but like as far as ace, like if I gave you a list of 10 different squat variations, like who's gonna say SSB is like their favorite one to do?
The most joyous experience.
It's like the last thing that you want to do. Like, so the only thing worse than that's like the Reaper cambered bar.
Yeah,
oh my god, that one sucks. So, but yeah, so I the last 4 weeks now I've been squatting on the SSB, and it's amazing how much more comfortable it is to just like put that squat bar like down on your traps and squat low bar. It's like, oh, this feels so good, you know? So I'm excited.
Do you have a plan competition wise for the year? Or?
I have zero plans, because for the first time in my life, it's funny because I was talking to James Deffenbach about this. I was just like, I just don't want to rush it, and I don't want to come back, because I'm technically already qualified for 2025 Strongman Corp Nationals. But if I'm ready to go, I am, and if I'm not, I'm not. And I just feel like I am training to enjoy training right now, because the last 5 years, I feel like I've always been rushing, and I'm always trying to rush it to get back and be there in time for something. And it never works out,
No, and that was the same as me. Like, you get hurt or whatever, and you're trying to get either back or just a little bit extra.
Right.
It's almost like quicksand.
Like you can't fight. That's a good way to put it.
You can't fight that.
And that's the same as me. Like, now I'm like, okay, I might not be pulling 800-pound deadlifts or pressing 300 pounds anymore, but I'm actually happy to be in the gym again.
Yeah,
100%. I think that's super important.
Like when I got hurt, when I tore my tricep and had my tricep and my right rotator done, I had my tricep was on October 17th, and my rotator was on December 22nd, and that was 2021 or 20. I think it was 2021, and I got the email from TJ and Furman like 5 weeks after that, and they were like, "Are you going to be ready for the American Deadlift Championships in April?" And I was like, "I'm going to try." And I rushed it, and I pushed myself too fast, And like I came in and like, I had a great time, and it was a fun show to do. But like realistically, like I had no business doing that fucking show, man. I should have said no, but I wanted to be on ESPN. I wanted to build my brand and build my name and blah, 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 blah. And then it was like, then I went right from that to like, okay, well, now I need to prep for the OSG qualifier. Now I need to prep for OSG. And I never really like fully healed,
Yeah. No, so, I get it.
So now it's like, and it sucks that like wisdom comes with age, but now I'm like, I'm old enough where I'm smart enough to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And like, and honestly, it's like, I don't know. I'm 100% not talking shit in any. I have a lot of respect for the dude, but with Derek as my coach, it was always like, go, go, go. And I mean, Derek's notorious for pushing his body past the point of fail, which is why his career was so short.
Yeah.
But like, we never had the discussion of like, let's pump the brakes. It was always just accelerator to the floor, So,
instigator.
Yeah. And it was kind of like, and I mean, I'm flattered that he had that much faith in me that I could be resilient enough to be able to perform at a high level, literally fucking broken, But but I'm at the point in my career now where, I still want to see how far I can go, but my priority has to be this show, I mean,
completely.
So
do you have any
huge
idea on like, again, what's it called? Like done for season 2? Like, is there any discussion of that?
Well, the ratings that should be out any minute now.
If you'd like to check again, feel free.
He's burning.
I'm going to take just a little bit of a peek here because I am, let's see here.
Yeah, that would be huge if you guys renewed for a second season.
It doesn't look like they're up. No, they're still not up. So here's the thing. The ratings are important for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, live and die by the ratings, but we get paid per episode, not like per season, So we had 9 episodes this first season. So with the numbers that we're pulling, it's important for us to get big numbers, not only to get renewed, but to get a bigger episode order.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we would love to see 13 to 15 episodes in the second season.
Because what's the this cash these days? I mean, obviously it's 20 seasons
they're 20 episodes.
2024, I think. Yeah.
So
it's a hell of a lot.
Crazy money. So, yeah, I mean, Wicked Tuna, they had 10 episodes their first season, and then I think they had 17 their second season. So, and then they got up to 20 episode seasons, and I'm not going to give away anybody's financial information, but they made a lot of goddamn money, So there was a lot of commas in those checks, so I'll leave it at that.
Doesn't sound like a bad problem to have at all.
No, and not only that, but I mean, I'm even starting to get a taste of it now, where you have your side of the deal where you have your contract with Pilgrim and you're paid your appearance fee and whatnot. But then, I mean, the last couple of weeks, I mean, my phone's been ringing off the hook as far as, Fish Northeast is my main sponsor. I've had offers from Century Rods, Grundens, Yeti Coolers, Smith Sunglasses.
Dude,
so yeah, that all has to, and realistically, I contacted a lot of these guys when we were getting ready to do the show.
Yeah.
Obviously, before something's a proven commodity, like they're going to be hesitant to really load in,
Yeah.
So Fish Northeast was the only one that actually like ponied up and sponsored with me. And if you notice in the show, their logo is above the tuna door. So when we're pulling the fish in, that's their logo right there. And I charged him what I thought was a very fair price to have his logo on the boat. And since he was the one that took the risk and went in with me, I met with him last week and I said, I don't care how long the show goes. I'm only going to charge you what I charged the first season. So I reward loyalty, and you're the only one. So 100%. You should benefit from that. And he's like, well, I appreciate that, but I don't mind. He's like, this could be really big. So we'll kind of take it year by year.
Yeah. That makes complete sense.
So, but yeah, I mean, it is crazy how like I say right now, like I'm famous with a lowercase f,
Yeah.
But
New England famous.
I'm definitely Cape Cod famous.
Yeah.
Because I've been noticed a few times. Or our
even before the show,
our waitress noticed us.
Even before the show, she was like, "Oh my god."
Yeah. So, but yeah, I get especially if I wear the shirt.
Yeah.
So. So it's kind of, it's cool. But
so how does it work? If you don't mind me asking, like how does it work with external sponsors? Like Yeti, Smith, whoever. Like, do you have to have that approved by the show?
Yeah, you have to. It's quite the process because. So basically, Fish Northeast was fine because it's a local tackle shop.
Yeah.
They're not like the rule of thumb kind of is, if it's a big publicly traded company, they want them to buy ad space for the show, But if it's a smaller, like, I mean, even like the foul weather gear that we wear at Grundens, like it's a bigger company, but it's still like, it's not big enough where, I mean, the ad spots on these shows for, the 9 p.m. Friday night Discovery time slot is, I mean, you're talking, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, so they want those spots, to be, for example, like Bass Pro Shops.
Yeah.
They had approached a lot of the Wicked Tuna guys and they wanted to do deals, and Nat Geo was just like, no, buy ad space, you know?
Yeah.
And then they eventually came to a deal where they sponsored like the whole fleet and they all got equipment and they all got that. So, but yeah, it's a real big, it's
minefield, I'm assuming. Put it mildly.
Yeah, and it's so my assistant producer Russell, he's like been so helpful navigating all that because obviously they want us to capitalize on all these opportunities.
Sure.
They want us to make money, but they need to make money as well.
Yeah.
And if you put a sticker or an advertisement on your boat and it doesn't get approved, then they have to blur it out.
Yeah.
They call it, oddly enough, they call it Greeking. You get Greeked. I don't know why. I never asked them.
What's the origin of that?
No idea. But when something's blurred out on TV, they call it you got Greeked. And apparently that is very expensive to do. and time consuming. Yeah, because the camera's always moving, so you got to keep a little blur over whatever it's on. And so they were like, if you guys want to, like, you just let us know and we'll run it by, whoever we need to run it by, and we'll get a yes or a no. Because it's funny because one of the other boats on the show, I don't give a shit, Tyler, the green boat, they showed up first day of filming and he had like fucking 40 stickers all over his boat, and his t-shirts were all like branded, and there was shit all over the back of his t-shirts and whatnot. Oh, and they were just like,
what the fuck
what are you doing? Yeah. Because if you noticed, they gave us a wardrobe.
Yeah.
So we're all dressed in black on the Easy Does It. Mm-hmm. On Pine Box, they're in baby blue. On Tyler's boat, they ended up in camo because they had all their custom shit. Get it out of here. And on Dion's boat, the Red Rum, I don't know what the fuck. I don't know what they're in. They're in a couple different things.
I'm trying to think what they're in now.
But they wanted all of us to wear similar colors,
I actually didn't even notice that.
Well,
apparently I'm really observant.
Now you'll notice now. But they showed up and Tyler's fish box looked like a NASCAR, and they were just like, get the scraper because we're peeling off. And even the logo that I had on my boat, it was originally fishnortheast.com, and they had to peel off the .com because they couldn't have a domain name on camera. Yeah. So
now, was this something that was in the contract?
Yeah, but
you kind of
pages,
there's a lot.
Like, was that in the contract? Was it not? So
and who wants to actually read?
Yeah, I mean that's what my lawyer's for. So he read it and he's like, "Yeah, it looks good." So I'm like, "Sweet, no problem."
Right.
But yeah, that was all in the contract as far as licensing and branding and whatnot. And but I mean, honestly, I mean they've been so cool, Pilgrim. I mean they've been so helpful. And I remember when we were first talking about doing this, Mike Nichols, he told me, he was like, look, I've made a lot of TV shows, and the one that he made before this one was it was with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and it was
Crystal Challenge or something.
It was something like that. And Mike was like, he goes, I love Steve, he's a great guy. He's like, but we were shooting the show and I didn't have the confidence in it that I have with this show,
Oh, okay.
So, and he was like, I genuinely believe that like this show has all the attributes to be a great show. Mm-hmm. And, this guy is like, he's made a ton of hit television shows. He's a really smart guy. I'm extremely grateful to have him as my producer. And I'm telling you right now, as far as a guy who's like a bigger guy in Hollywood, if I called him right now, he'd pick up in 2 seconds, you know? And he said to me at the beginning, he's like, if you ever have any problems with any of the shooters, the ground producers, any of the crew, like anything's going on that you don't like, he goes, call me right away. Yeah. Don't think that you're going over their heads. He's like, I want to make sure that this gets done right. Mm-hmm. If you have any problems, come right to, I'm your guy to solve anything.
Nice.
And there's been a couple times where, I'll call him and be like, well, this is kind of, and he's like, yep, on it, no problem. And I'm just like, wow, Jesus Christ. So
that's cool.
Somebody that actually does what they say.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why he's been so successful.
90s kid,
right? He's a 90s kid.
I think Nichols is more like a 70s kid. But it's been a genuine pleasure. Everybody that I've worked with, from all my shooters and the whole team, it's just they always have a great attitude, and it's like the work that they do and the hours that they put in.
Yeah. And
they're here away from their families. They're put up in a hotel for 2 months. Yeah. Early mornings, late nights. Yeah. They're on a boat they're doing what we do. And it's not for everybody. And I'll tell you, they absolutely hit it out of the park. So
nice.
I mean, they were always happy to be doing what they were doing. And I think that that's what really made the show, was that the cinematography and just like a lot of the drone footage and like I mean, what would you even call it? Just like they put it in the New York Times as the stunning vistas, where like, you know, they're doing the wraparound shots of us in the tower and you see the ocean and all the whales and sharks.
See the whale shots.
Are amazing.
Incredible.
They wanted this show to be Wicked Tuna meets Blue Planet, and I think they nailed it.
Nice.
You know, so
which so cool. Yeah.
So it was a blast, and it was a lot of work, but it was fun, and I hope to be doing it for the next 10, 15 years of my life. Too. So
that's awesome. Sarah, do you have any burning questions?
Oh God,
Sarah segment.
I feel like now I've asked things. Oh, I did want to ask you if there had ever been a moment growing up, or even just now, that you've been fearful of being out there on the water.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I mean, what was like the craziest one? Because I know it's like so kind of normal to you, but so
we've had a few close calls. The worst weather I've ever been out in was the 2008 or 2009 Monster Shark Tournament out of Oaks Bluffs. I was working for a good friend of my father's, Ron Crisp. He's a sport fishing captain. And that shark tournament is like these guys, they're all millionaires that enter it, you know, and it's so expensive to enter. And the grand prize is like $500,000. Wow. So, and it's on the same weekend. They don't do it anymore because, you know, kill sharks, bad. But we only harvested edible sharks. So I don't know, whatever. But they don't do it anymore. And they switched it and moved it to Block Island, but I digress. So it was the same weekend every year. So when you pay that much money to be in a tournament, you go fishing regardless of what the weather is, right? Mm-hmm. So it was on Martha's Vineyard, and we left and circled the island and started heading south towards the canyons, because that's where you find like the big tigers and the big, big makos and whatnot. And it was blowing like 40 knots out of the south. So we're going straight into it. And like we get to the Hooter, which is the a buoy. It's a navigational marker with a whistle on it. So the harder the wind's blowing, the louder it is. Yeah. So it was like you could hear the thing from a mile away. That's how hard the wind was blowing. So we were taking like good, steady 15-foot waves over the bow. We were in a 67 Bertram, which is a really nice sport fishing boat. But this was, we had like the owner's buddies with us. Like he was a Fortune 500 guy, Suffolk Construction. They did the big dig. Like this was his boat. So they're all a bunch of rich guys. And I'm just looking, they're all turning like different shades of green, and I'm just like, oh boy. And like, I'm looking at Ron, and Ron said to all the guys, like, you guys want to turn around? And they're like, no, let's go. Let's do it. So anyway, so we get like another 3 miles, and there was a center console, right, that had no business being out in this weather, but they were in the tournament. It was a 29-foot lures, and they were behind us because they were in our wake, which was like kind of a safe place to be. And for whatever reason, they like just throttled down and passed us, and we were in thick fog too. So it's the whole thing sucked, right? Yeah. So right after that, we took like a 25-foot wave over the bow and ripped the front hatch off, flooded the anchor locker, which then spilled into the VIP suite. So we flooded the boat. Yeah. And then Ron was like, okay, we're done. And like turning around and sees like that is tough, you know, but Ron's a really good captain. So he got us turned around. We got back to the dock, and we spent the rest of the day putting the boat back together. The boat that was in front of us, the center console, when that wave hit them, it ripped their cap right off the hull, and the boat sank in 2 minutes, and they had to be rescued by the Coast Guard. Yeah. So respect the ocean, kids.
Yeah.
And then, so that was really, I mean, that was horrible weather, but I wouldn't say I was scared. The only time I've ever been scared was we were cod fishing off of Stellwagen Bank, which is about 50 miles away from Sandwich, the top of the bank. Yeah. So we left. We knew that there was weather coming, but it was like end of the season, right? And in that fishery, you have your individual quota. Okay. Yeah. So we had like 1,900 pounds of codfish left in our quota, and jiggings with rods. Sure. Okay. So we went up to the bank and north of Middle Bank, and we started jigging, and we had like 1,500 pounds in the boat, and my father's just like, oh, come on, we can't leave fish on the table. We gotta. And he knew the storm was coming, and he's like, it's gonna be an ass beat on the way home, but like we gotta fill it up. We gotta fill it up, you know. So we finished catching our fish, and the boat that we cod fished on was named the Ruby, which is named after my mother and my father, Ruth and Billy Ruby. Okay. So and that's a 32-foot BHM, which is a great boat, solid boat. He rebuilt it and made it perfect, just like he does with everything. So we catch our fish, and the wind had already started coming up, and so he punched it into home, and we were like 53 miles from home, and we just, within like an hour, it was like 10 to 12 footers. Just, you couldn't even see out the windows because the waves would bust and it would be all green water, then white water. And then as soon as you could see, like for another second, just the next one, like hit. Yeah. And I remember that was the only time where we would hit one and then go up and crash down, and you'd hit so hard, like your bones hurt, you know? Mm-hmm. And, I was just like, wow, this is fucking crazy. And in the middle of the deck, we had this 4-foot by 4-foot aluminum hatch that you would dog down, and that was the fish hold, right? Yeah. So we were hitting so hard that the crank to the hatch popped, and the hatch popped open, and the fish were flying out of the fish hold. And he was like, fuck, we gotta close this hole. And so I'm on the deck trying to close the hold, and it's like, dude, it was crazy. And I was like, and at that point, I was fucking scared. Yeah. So, but luckily enough, I fishing the North Atlantic in the wintertime is a young man's game, and I once I turned 30, I was like, I think I'm all set with that, you know. So
I'm good.
Not that, I mean, it's fun and it's an adventure, but like I mean, whatever. Call me a pussy. I
would not call you that.
So. Wow. I like being warm in my gym in February rather than, you know, getting the absolute shit kicked out of me in the middle of the ocean. So
hard pass for me.
Hard pass. Yeah. Which is like, you know, you watch Deadliest Catch, and you know, it's like those guys they're on 120-foot boats in the middle of the Bering Sea getting the absolute crap kicked out of them, and it's just like, God bless you, boys.
Oh yeah,
you know, it's like tough way to earn a living.
I know.
So,
right?
But
do you want to wrap it up with our new feature?
Oh boy.
Rapid fire question round.
Okay, I said we needed a disco ball for this.
A disco
we
ball?
don't have disco ball, unfortunately.
Dub in a disco ball.
Well, I was joking. We needed another light because we have 80 lights in here. And I was like, well, we should have a disco ball.
I was kind of wondering because Ken was like, our new segment, and you had a look on your face like, you're like, what are we talking about?
That's why I was like, which segment are we talking about?
Amp it up a little bit here.
No, I love rapid fire questions.
Perfect.
I have no filter anyway, so let's go.
Okay. Let's do it. All right. We've got 10.
Should I just yell when he has the time up?
Nah.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
I do have one of these little noise things.
Oh, yeah, I just can't remember which button does what, though.
Me neither. All right, keep going.
We should just figure it out. All right. First up, biggest lifting achievement?
My 971 deadlift.
Tuna, salmon, or cod?
Tuna.
Favorite pre-workout meal?
A large meat lover's pizza.
Ooh, nice. Most challenging fish you've ever caught?
Oh. Like individual fish or species of fish to catch?
Either or. Whatever you think.
I would say white marlin is a really tough fish to hook and catch because they're incredibly rare. And the hardest individual fish that I ever had to catch was this season on the show where our zapper didn't work, and I had to hand fight a 1,000-pound bluefin, and my hands were literally black the next day. So that was a hard fish. Yeah.
Okay. Go to exercise. Like favorite exercise?
No, squats.
Surprising. I was waiting for deadlift.
People think I'm a deadlift guy, man, but if there were more squats and strongman, I'd be known as the squat guy, not the deadlift guy.
Okay. Best fishing spot you've ever visited?
Oh, I can't tell you that, man.
I know. I was like, there's no way he's going to answer this one. How do you stay motivated between fishing and training?
It's just the lifestyle, man. There's, dedication is more important than motivation.
There you go. Secret weapon in competition.
Oh God. I'll just say a big huff of ammonia before a big lift.
Okay. Biggest fishing fail.
Ooh. There's been so many of them. Probably, again, just trying to adapt this season and making stupid mistakes without my father there to tell me we're being stupid. And I harpooned a fish, and the fish took off, and we didn't work together as a team properly, and the line got hung up in the pulpit wire, and we ripped the dart right out of the fish. So we lost a huge, it was like and it was the last day of the season too. And it was like at 4:00. It was like the end of the day, last day of the season.
Like
it was like
heartbreaking.
we yeah, God, I don't want to give anything away, but it was a really important fish for us to get.
Okay.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay. And last one, if you could have dinner with any athlete, dead or alive, who would it be?
Any athlete, dead or alive. Strength athlete or any athlete at all?
Let's do both.
Okay. If I could have dinner with any strength athlete, I think it would be. Damn, this is harder than I thought.
Wow,
so many options.
If I could have dinner with any strength athlete, this is going to sound so fucking corny, but I would want it to be somebody like an Andre Foytu, so I could tell him all the stupid shit that I've done.
Yeah,
and don't do this, and kind of like, because I mean, I'm 38, right? So my career is towards the end. So I could say like a cliche thing, like, oh, I'd want to sit down with like, Jan Paul and pick his brain above it. But like, I'm past that point,
Yeah.
So I would rather, instead of me trying to make myself better, I would rather help a young guy avoid pitfalls and whatnot. And as far as any athlete, absolutely Kobe Bryant. He embodies everything that I live by. Just that whole mentality of the way that I try to conduct myself and the way that I try to compete is everything that he embodied. So I would love to sit down and be able to talk to him. So
I think those are very good choices.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, thank you, Niko. If you haven't checked out Harpoon Hunters yet, where can they get you? Where can they see you?
It is live every night on Discovery Channel, every Friday night on Discovery Channel at 9 p.m. It is also streamed on Discovery Plus and Max. New episodes out Friday nights for the next 8 weeks. So check it out and appreciate the sit down, Ken, and hopefully.
Where can they find you in your socials as well? Let's have that then real quick. That's important.
So they can find me at Greek Goliath on Instagram, and the boat, which is also linked on my Instagram, is FV_Easy Does It. So Easy Does It
and apparel.
spelled like this. Oh yeah, and easydoesitapparel.com to get your t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts, and all your swag. So
nice. Hey, thanks again, man.
Absolutely, brother. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.